Get enough body
Okay,
parts
we're going
for
to call
them.
the Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Floyd, Koss, Bub, Marmee, and Johnson sitting in for Frazier. First item on the agenda is a consideration for an appropriation in the amount of $5,700.
This appropriation is for our two new traffic grants from the Ohio Department of Public Safety. Those grants follow the federal fiscal year, so we need to have an appropriation now.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Floyd, second by Bub. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Next item is a request for appropriation amount of $20,327.40.
Good evening. The Bureau of Workers' Compensation has a grant out there, and like I always tell you, we apply for grants in every facet of the fire department to try to get some money into the city. In this case, they're for cardiac arrest compression devices that are out on the street, the new technology and compressions. They are expensive. We're getting two from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation provided to us with this money. Just to give you a little background real quickly while I've got a few minutes of your time, last year we had 169 cardiac arrests in the city of Newark. We still maintain a better save rate than the national average within the city limits here. Proud of that. Also in 2015, the Newark Fire Department was awarded by the American Heart Association a pre-hospital treatment of stroke and cardiac arrest patients, an award that says we're working very well with Licking Memorial Hospital to get things done better than the average person. So we're pretty happy about that. There's only 75 agencies total in the state of Ohio that got that award, and we are one of them. So I believe our cardiac arrest data speaks for itself. These compression devices that we'll get with this grant money will only make things better. They do a lot of different things. It's the latest trend in technology. Provides better compression quality on somebody. And we can remain seat belted while chest compressions are being performed by the mechanical device and be able to free up our hands to do other things. We have less people sometimes, so it's better to have something doing something for us mechanically so we can provide other services to that patient. So pretty excited about that. We're also working another grant to get another one through Firehouse Subs on 21st Street, so we're hopeful that will come through as well. So we just ask that money that's been provided by the grant be pushed back into our account so we can purchase those items.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Koss, second by Floyd. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Next item is a request for appropriation, the amount of $1,400.
Good evening. This is one of those cases where one of our defendants destroyed the scram unit, and they actually paid it all back, so we were happy about that. So we would like to purchase another one, and it's in our probation improvement and incentive grant.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Koss. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $15,000.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is to pay for additional costs incurred when we have to order a psychological evaluation of a defendant and also for the use of interpreters. The Supreme Court very recently promulgated a new rule of superintendents which requires courts to provide an interpreter for non-native speakers if they request it or if the court deems them unable to understand or comprehend the proceedings, which is fair. The Supreme Court has also prohibited trial courts from assessing the cost of those interpreters as court costs to the litigant. So that's something that the local courts have to eat, and it's basically an unfunded mandate. As far as the evaluations go, I don't know if you remember last year we had to come back for more money on those as well. If there's a suggestion of incompetence or insanity, the court is required to order a psychological evaluation to be done. Just to let you know how diligent we're trying to be to minimize these costs, we've taken a couple of steps. Number one, we're starting to utilize a different service provider that's about half the cost of our former one. We're not required to use any specific or certain one, so now we're using a different psychologist to conduct most of those. The other thing that we try to do, and I can give you a good example, it's not uncommon for somebody who needs to undergo a psychological evaluation to have more than one case pending. Sometimes it's one in front of me, one in front of Judge Higgins, sometimes it's one in front of us, one down at the Common Pleas Court. If one has already been ordered, we don't order a second one because we don't want to be redundant. Because we can take judicial notice of the fact that if they were evaluated pursuant to a felony case that was pending, we don't have to order one and pay for it to find out the same results. So we try to do that as well. It is a lot of money, and I understand that the city is hurting financially, but unfortunately these are services that we're required by law to provide, and we respectfully ask that the council, or that this be sent to the council for consideration of appropriation of the funds.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Floyd, second by Johnson. Questions or discussion? Yes, go ahead.
What normally would be the price of having the evaluation done?
Well, I can give you an example. Recently, I was looking over, as administrative judge now, I have to sign off on all the expenditures. Typically, an evaluation to determine whether a person is competent to stand trial is about $1,500. But with this new provider, it's about $750. So that's cutting the cost in half. And then, if they are found not to be competent, then you don't even go to the point where you determine whether or not they were legally sane at the time of the offense. But then it gets kind of complicated with possible placement in a facility or an institution, and we don't have to bear those costs, thankfully, but the evaluation we do.
And I don't see anybody from the auditor's office. So did they tell you what fund this is coming from?
I got an email, and I apologize, I didn't print it out. It was something about recertifying something or other.
Okay.
That probably doesn't help you any more than it helps me.
No, he mentioned that he was going to try to do that. So
Yeah.
I just noticed it's coming from the unappropriated balance, and I was told that there was nothing in the unappropriated balance, so.
I can certainly get that information and provide it to, if the committee were to forward it.
If that's where it's coming from, then I do know. I think what Steve has done is he's recertified the collections as far as the taxes to increase it by $15,000 in order to make an unappropriated balance of $15,000. So just so everybody knows what is going on. He mentioned in the email that he was considering doing that, and I didn't know if that was actually...
I hadn't heard anything to the contrary. In fact, he had originally sent that to Judge Higgins and then sent a follow to me as a result of not realizing that I was serving as administrative judge this year. So the fact that it was sent out, and I don't know whether it went out today or I think it came out Friday, I would imagine that I haven't heard anything since, so I would imagine he still intends to do that.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item on the agenda is a request for legislation authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to prepare and submit to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development a one-year use of funds action plan along with the application for fiscal year 2017 Federal Community Development Block Grant Funds as required by 24 CFR Part 91.220 for various programs related to housing and community development.
This is our annual request for our CDBG application. We will be having our public hearing on October 6th at 4 o'clock, Council Chamber, to announce our potential subrecipients.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Floyd, second by Bud. further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, aye. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. And the final item on the agenda is a request for legislation authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to prepare and submit applications to the Ohio Department of Public Safety for fiscal year 2016 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant funding.
This is a short-term 6-month grant that the Department of Public Safety offers law enforcement each year. Last year, fortunately, we were funded for the Boots and Pedals project for the downtown area, and the police department and I will be getting together to put together another application.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Floyd, second by Bub. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes the requests and the legislation requests. The chair does have a couple of questions that he would like to just state for on the record. I would like to know if and when we're going to have a budget review committee meeting. I think that it's definitely necessary. And then I also would like to know if we're going to recertify at any point any further funds other than the $15,000, seeing as if we have some different things. Oh, I was asking about budget review.
Yeah, I'm getting with the auditor right now, and since we're getting real close to the end of the third quarter, that's generally like we put it in and it talks about the upcoming year, what it looks like, how it's going to fit into the upcoming budget. So I will get back with you and give you a date.
Okay, very good. And with that, we stand adjourned.